Zuri, why is that boy in here? Hazel Mitchell's voice sliced through the boardroom like a cold command. This is a meeting about the company's survival, not somewhere children should be standing. Executives turned sharply toward 10-year-old Declan Rivera, who stood by his mother with the quiet posture of someone who had learned early in life how to disappear into a room. Zuri gently touched his shoulder, as if her fingers alone could shield him from a world collapsing under fluorescent lights. Hazel didn't care. Hazel couldn't care. Because Whitmore Tech, her empire, wasn't just in trouble. It was dying. 3 days since the blackout. 3 days since every platform, every server, every device connected to Whitmore Tech's vast digital arteries had gone silent. 3 days of $500 million lost, every single day. The conference room looked like a battlefield. Screens frozen. Experts slumped in expensive suits. Coffee half-finished and forgotten. A war council with no plan, no hope, and no functioning systems. Hazel scanned the room. Her chief responders, her emergency hires, the so-called best minds money could buy. Everett Gray, the former Apple security chief, now paid enough per day to finance a luxury car. Lila Price, the MIT systems architect whose textbooks sat in university libraries across the world. Bo Hughes, the legendary freelance hacker who charged more than surgeons. All of them defeated by their own keyboards. In the corner, Declan watched quietly, absorbing everything. He didn't fidget. He didn't speak. He simply looked, as if the broken screens were telling him a story the adults couldn't hear. Hazel paced. Her company wasn't supposed to end like this. 12 years of building Whitmore Tech from a garage startup into a global tech empire, only to watch it sink under a wave of corruption none of her experts could understand. A single catastrophic crash had locked millions of users out of hospitals, banks, small businesses, a digital chain reaction that left the world gasping. And Hazel was ready to accept defeat. Backup servers are responding with the same corruption, Lila reported, voice tight. It spread like digital cancer. Hazel closed her eyes. Backup servers were the last defense. Fortified, isolated, secure. If they were infected, everything was over. News vans already clogged the street below. Investors were panicking. Clients were threatening lawsuits. Competitors circled like vultures. Worst of all were the employee calls. Ordinary people who trusted Hazel with their careers, their families, their future. And she was failing them. Hazel, Colton Powell, said heavily, "We need to discuss bankruptcy." The word hit her like a body blow. Bankruptcy. The end of everything she built. The end of 3,000 jobs. The end of Whitmore Tech. Hazel's throat tightened. She gripped the edge of the table to steady herself as the room spiraled. Everett closed his laptop. "I'm sorry," he said. "The damage is too extensive. We can't restore this with any known method." Silence fell over the room, the kind of silence that feels like the moment a heart stops beating. Hazel's voice cracked. "Then we have nothing left to try. Begin drafting the termination letters and call the bankruptcy lawyers." Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone. 12 years of work, ending because of a problem she couldn't even name. A quiet voice unexpectedly broke the silence. Excuse me, can I look at the computer?" Hazel froze. Every executive turned. Even the humming of the overhead lights seemed to pause. Declan Rivera stepped forward. Zuri's eyes widened in horror. "Declan, no," she whispered, reaching for him. "These people are busy." But Declan didn't step back. He didn't hide. He kept looking at the dead screens with a strange calm, like he saw something familiar. Hazel blinked. "You want to look at the computer?" Declan nodded. "Sometimes systems crash when I'm coding," he said softly. "Sometimes the problem is simple, but grown-ups miss it because they're thinking too hard." The room erupted in awkward laughter. Bo smirked. "Kid, these aren't video games." Everett sighed. "This is enterprise infrastructure. A child can't." "5 minutes," Hazel said suddenly. Every head snapped toward her. "Give him 5 minutes." The experts protested, shocked, offended, but Hazel raised her hand sharply. "No one else has given me results. Let him try." Zuri pulled Declan close. "Baby, you don't have to." "Mama." Declan whispered. I just want to help. Hazel gestured to the terminal. Declan walked toward it like he'd walked toward screens 1,000 times before, with familiarity, not fear. Everett hesitated, then pulled up the error logs. Thousands of red messages poured down the screen like bleeding code. Declan stared for 37 seconds, then pointed. There, he said simply. That's wrong. Lila squinted. That's standard syntax. No, Declan said gently. You put a semicolon, but you needed a colon. Silence. Complete, staggering silence. Everett leaned in, face draining of color. That's a syntax error. A simple punctuation mistake. Declan nodded. It happens a lot. One character. One tiny character. Everett corrected it. The system hummed. Screens flickered. Data returned like breath re-entering lungs. Whitmore Tech came back to life. Everyone stared. Hazel felt her knees weaken. Declan just swung his legs, smiling shyly. But then, new alerts flashed. Declan's smile vanished. Something else is wrong, he said, eyes narrowing. Someone's been inside your system, stealing your data. What? Hazel breathed. Declan pointed to a cascade of logs. They're still here. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Everett rushed to a terminal. Lila paled. Bo froze. Declan continued softly. This wasn't an accident. This was an attack. Hazel's heart stopped. And then Declan added one final sentence, the one that changed everything. And I think they know we found them. The first ripple of danger spread through the room, just seconds before the real attack began. For a full 7 seconds, no one moved. The systems were alive again. Screens glowed with familiar dashboards and data streams. Status lights blinked green instead of angry red. The company that had been declared clinically dead just minutes ago was suddenly breathing. But the person who had performed the miracle was not Everett Gray, not Lila Price, not Bo Hughes. It was the 10-year-old boy who wasn't supposed to be in the room. Declan slid down slightly in the chair, his sneakers not quite touching the floor, as grown professionals stared at him like he'd just rewritten the laws of physics. Hazel finally found her voice. How did you see that when they couldn't? Declan shrugged with a small, almost apologetic smile. When you learn from messing up, you get good at looking for small mistakes. I crash my games all the time, he said. Most of the time, it's not some big, complicated bug. It's a comma, or a missing bracket, or a semicolon pretending to be a colon. Everett's jaw clenched. 30 years in cybersecurity. Millions earned. And he had been destroyed by punctuation. Around the room, expensive credentials silently collapsed under the weight of one simple truth. Genius doesn't always come in the package you expect. Hazel took a breath, the first one in hours that didn't burn. Numbers ran through her mind. Losses halted, lawsuits possibly avoided, stock value that might crawl back from the grave. She looked at Declan and saw something else. A lifeline she never knew she had. Declan, she said carefully, I don't know how to thank. Wait, he said, frowning suddenly. The room stiffened. Hazel's heartbeat stumbled. What's wrong? Everett asked. Declan leaned closer to the screen, eyes narrowing, his earlier shy softness replaced by focused calculation. The system's working, he said slowly, but this isn't just restart activity. He pointed to a scrolling column of logs. Look at these. Everett followed his finger. File access logs, transfer records, outgoing connections. These look like normal post-restart checks, Everett started. Declan shook his head. No, these are external polls. Big ones. And they're not system updates. They are drains. You type a quick filter. Lines rearranged, condensed, sharpened into a horrifying pattern. Data, gigabytes of it, was flowing out of Whitmore Tech. Not in a single burst, but in a steady, deliberate stream. Someone's pulling your information, Declan said quietly. While you thought everything was dead, they were busy, and they're still busy right now. Hazel felt the floor tilt. How much are they taking? She managed. Declan scrolled, his eyes flickering back and forth at a speed that made even Bo stare in disbelief. A lot, Declan answered. Customer files, internal documents, system configs, financial records. He clicked another window. And they're not just reading, They're copying, duplicating, exporting. Everett pulled his own laptop closer and ran his tools. The color drained from his face as the same pattern appeared. He's right, Everett said quietly. There's an active transfer in progress. Hazel's throat tightened. So, while we were trying to save the company, someone was robbing it, Lila finished. Declan opened a real-time graph. A jagged line shot upward, mapping the flood of stolen data. They started the big downloads 3 days ago, when everything crashed, Declan said. But there are smaller ones going back. He counted, lips moving slightly. At least 6 months. Maybe more. 6 months. Colton whispered. 6 months of leaking data? The room felt smaller. Hotter. Every executive suddenly became aware of the cameras outside. The headlines already forming, the legal consequences that would come when clients discovered the truth. What about money? Hazel asked. Can they reach our financial accounts? Declan didn't answer right away. He opened a separate trail of logs and traced transactions with methodical precision. There are lots of tiny movements, he said. A few dollars from this account, a few from that one. Spread out, barely noticeable. He tapped a few more keys. The totals recalculated. About 2 million over 6 months, Declan said. They're making it look like your systems are stealing small amounts from customers. If anyone notices, it points back to you. Hazel's heart slammed against her ribs. They're framing us, Colton said, his voice flat. When this gets out, customers will think Whitmore Tech has been skimming their accounts. This isn't just a hack, Bo muttered. It's a full-scale assassination. Hazel stared at the screens, the rising numbers, the quiet efficiency of the attack. How do we shut this down? She asked. Declan took a breath, eyes flicking over the chaos with the calm of someone who had fought this sort of battle in smaller, pixelated worlds. If I cut them off fast, he said, they'll know I saw them. Hackers like this, when they get caught, they sometimes erase everything out of spite. Delete your backups. Wipe your databases. Lock you out of your own systems. What's the alternative? Everett asked. I slow them down first, Declan replied, so they don't notice right away. I make their connection heavy, sluggish, like they're running through mud instead of sprinting. That buys us time to track them. Hazel looked at him. You know how to do that? Declan nodded with a modesty that didn't match what he was about to attempt. I learned on game servers, he said, almost apologetically. When too many players log in at once, you either shape the traffic or everything crashes. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The grown men who built systems used by millions had never thought about fixing this like a kid who had just wanted his favorite game not to lag. Hazel glanced at Zuri. Zuri had her hands clasped in front of her, knuckles white, watching her son step deeper into a world she only understood in fragments. Declan, she said softly, you don't have to keep doing this. He looked back at her, eyes steady. If I don't, they'll take everything, he answered. Not just from Ms. Hazel, from the families that work here, from the hospitals, from the people who use these systems and don't even know what's happening. The room went quiet. Everyone was hearing the same thing, but it hit Zuri differently. This wasn't a child playing hero. This was a child carrying a weight no child should be asked to carry. Hazel nodded slowly. What do you need from us? She asked. Let me work, Declan said. And someone should probably call law enforcement. If I can find them, you'll need proof. And protection. Everett cleared his throat. I'll monitor and document everything, he said. We'll timestamp each event. Build an evidence trail. Hazel picked up her phone with a hand that no longer shook. I'm calling federal cybercrime, she said. While she dialed, Declan's fingers began to move. Windows opened. Graphs adjusted. Lines of configuration scrolled past as he rewired the pathways through which Whitmore text data flowed. To him, it wasn't abstract infrastructure. It was a living maze he had to redesign on the fly. First, I'll stretch their path, he murmured. If they're sprinting, I'll turn into a long hallway. They'll still keep running. They just won't realize it's taking longer. Within minutes, Everett watched the data transfer metrics plummet. We're down 60%, he said, stunned. You actually slowed them. They won't notice right away, Declan replied. They'll think it's just network congestion. Hazel lowered her phone after finishing the brief, urgent call. The agency is sending someone, she said. They said to preserve everything we can. Declan's eyes stayed on the monitors. That's good, he said, because this is bigger than just you. What do you mean? Lila asked. He expanded the view on one stolen server, then another. Directories filled the screen, not just labeled with Whitmore Tech, but other company names. This attacker has files from other companies, too, Declan said. Lots of them. They've been doing this for a while. Bo leaned in, eyes narrowing, reading company names that had made headlines over the last 2 years. Sudden outages, unexplained failures, mysterious cyber incidents that had seemed random at the time. This isn't a lone hacker, Bo said slowly. This is a career. Declan's fingers moved again. While they're busy trying to steal more from you, he said, I'm going to follow their trail backward. If they're greedy, they're probably sloppy somewhere. Zuri watched his small hands flying across the keys, her heart torn between pride and fear. You ever underestimate someone because of the way they look? Their age? Their background? In that glass room, surrounded by degrees, titles, money, and power, the only person making progress was the one person they hadn't even planned to let inside. Everett stared at the kid, at the graphs, at the shrinking transfer rate, and realized his entire understanding of expertise had just shifted. Declan, he said quietly, you do realize you're going head-to-head with someone who's been planning this for months, maybe years? Declan nodded without looking away from the screen. Yeah, he said, but they made one mistake already. What mistake? Hazel asked. They thought nobody would ever look for them in the simple things, Declan replied. Now I know how they think. He hit enter. New windows opened, tracing the attacker's path through layers of proxies and rerouted signals. Hazel watched the lines trace like electric veins across the map, realizing something terrifying and undeniable at the same time. Her company had not been saved by her degrees, her investors, or her world-class hires. It had been saved by the boy they all tried to ignore. And the story was only getting started. Because if Declan was right, the person on the other side of those cables wasn't just a thief. They were a hunter, and for the first time, they were being hunted back. But what Declan would discover at the end of that digital trail would hit Hazel harder than the crash itself, because the real enemy wasn't a stranger at all. The digital trail moved like a living creature across Declan's screen, weaving, splitting, vanishing, reappearing through servers around the world. Each hop was a new disguise, a new attempt to throw off anyone daring enough to chase it. But Declan wasn't chasing like an adult would. He wasn't thinking about protocol, or jurisdiction, or layers of encrypted walls. He was thinking like a gamer hunting a final boss. And Hazel Mitchell, standing behind him with arms folded tight, realized she was watching something she had no vocabulary for. A child navigating digital shadows with instincts none of her experts possessed. What are you seeing now? Hazel asked, voice measured but strained. Declan didn't answer at first. He leaned closer. His eyes moved so fast Hazel wondered how he could even process what he saw. Graphs pulsed around him. Logs changed too quickly for any grown-up in the room to follow. Whoever this is, he said finally, they're really, really good. Define good. Everett said, his tone sharpening. Declan tapped a command. A new map exploded across the monitor, lines branching through countries, oceans, islands. They're bouncing through different networks faster than your experts can trace one path. Every time they steal something, they use a different tunnel. New server, new route, new disguise. Lila exhaled shakily. That's professional. No, Declan corrected softly. That's personal. Hazel's stomach tightened. What do you mean? People who hack for money, Declan explained, steal and leave. They don't stay this long. They don't risk getting caught. Whoever this is, they're not just stealing. He pointed at a cluster of logs marked in red. They're watching you. A cold hush spread through the room. Everett's voice lowered. Watching us. Yeah. Declan's tone stayed calm, but serious. Whenever someone here types or opens something, they respond a few seconds later. Like they're sitting right here with us, Bo finished. Hazel felt a chill move down her spine. For 3 days, they had tried to fix something that refused to fix. For 3 days, someone had been inside their walls. Watching, testing, undermining, and laughing. Declan pulled up another window. It gets worse. Lines of financial logs began scrolling. Small withdrawals, fractions of a cent, hundreds of accounts, thousands of lines. Hazel's breath caught. Is that? Yes, Declan answered. They're moving money, a tiny bit at a time. But the pattern, it's deliberate. How much? Colton asked, voice trembling. Declan did the calculation in seconds. About 2 million, he said. That's how much they've taken so far. A collective gasp filled the room. 2 million stolen. 6 months of leakage. And placed perfectly in Hazel Mitchell's lap. It looks like you did it, Declan said. Hazel staggered back. Framed. Sabotaged. Publicly destroyed. That was the plan. Zuri, who had been standing close to the wall, covered her mouth with both hands. She understood what Hazel now felt. That crushing, breathless terror when you realize someone is dismantling your life on the inside. Hazel steadied herself, but her voice broke anyway. Why would someone do this? Declan didn't answer. His fingers were already moving again. Tracing. Following. Digging deeper. The route sharpened into 3 major servers. 3 major jumps. But one jump stuttered, a tiny glitch. There, Declan whispered. They made a mistake. Lila leaned forward. What mistake? They reused an old relay server. One they probably forgot about. It's not protected well. He hit a sequence of keys. The room leaned in. Lines of new directories unfolded. Like lifting a curtain on a hidden world. Where's this relay coming from? Everett asked. Declan zoomed in. The room fell silent as the location label appeared. Miami, Florida. A commercial server farm. One Hazel recognized. Her pulse spiked. That can't be right. Bo frowned. You know the facility? Hazel swallowed. Yes. That's one of the places we use to store backup load balancing servers before I shut down that project 8 months ago. Lila went still. 8 months? She repeated slowly. The number hung in the air like a ghost. Declan, expression tightening, opened one more folder on the relay server. A personnel list popped up. Whitmore tech credentials. Admin names. Access levels. Old passwords. Internal documents. And one name circled in yellow. A name Hazel hadn't spoken since she fired him. Caden Fowler. Hazel's breath punched out of her. No, that's impossible. Declan turned his chair slightly, eyes somber. He didn't leave. Ms. Hazel, he said quietly. He stayed. Inside your system. And he's been stealing from you ever since. Hazel pressed a hand to her forehead. Caden, her former head of cybersecurity, fired 8 months earlier for negligence, insubordination, and questionable activity. She'd assumed that was the end of him. But Caden hadn't gone away. He'd gone underground, into her code, her servers, her firewalls, waiting like a shadow for the perfect moment. And 3 days ago, he took it. Hazel's voice was barely audible. He wanted revenge. Declan didn't look up from the screen. No, he said. Hazel blinked. No. Declan pointed at the stolen files, not just from Whitmore Tech, but from dozens of companies. This isn't revenge, he said. This is a business. Lila's stomach dropped. What kind of business? Declan scrolled, revealing more directories, more company names, more stolen data, more digital corpses. Caden isn't working alone, Declan said. He's been hired, paid, used. Hazel stared, horrified. By who? Declan looked at her. I don't know yet, he admitted. But they're doing this to lots of companies. On purpose. Everett's voice cracked. An organized group, a cyber assassination ring, Bo whispered. Wiping out companies for money. Hazel tried to breathe, but the realization had shattered something inside her. She thought Whitmore Tech had fallen to a glitch. She thought failure made her blind. But she had been attacked, systematically, deliberately, by someone she once trusted. Declan wasn't finished. One more thing, he said quietly. He knows we're watching him. Hazel's eyes widened. What? Declan pointed at the real-time logs. The data transfers had sped up. Massively. They're accelerating, he said. He's panicking. Everett paled. He's trying to steal everything before we can stop him. Declan's tone dropped to a whisper. No, he's not just stealing. Lines of red warnings appeared. Delete, delete, delete. Lila's hand flew to her mouth. He's wiping the system. Hazel gasped. No, 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 please. Declan's voice cut through the panic. If he finishes this, Whitmore Tech is gone. But the thing Declan discovered next would be the blow Hazel never saw coming. Because Caden wasn't trying to escape. He was preparing for war. The warning spread across every monitor like a wildfire. Lines of bright red deletions ripped through file structures Hazel had spent 12 years building. Customer databases collapsed in real time. Backups flickered, glitched, and began vanishing. Internal documents evaporated faster than anyone could comprehend. Everett lunged toward the console. Declan, can you stop the wipe? Declan didn't answer. His face had gone still. Not frightened, but focused in a way Hazel had never seen on any adult, let alone a child. He's not deleting at random, Declan murmured. He's deleting in layers. Carefully, like he practiced this. Hazel felt like the floor was dropping beneath her. Caden planned this? Declan nodded. He planted code months ago, code that waits for a trigger. And when it triggered 3 days ago, it opened a door he already built. Both stared at the raw destruction on the screens. A self-destruct sequence for an entire corporation. Declan's small hands hovered over the keyboard. It's not just sabotage. It's a demonstration. Hazel blinked. A what? Declan straightened, a sudden chill in his voice. He wants you to know he did this. Everyone went silent. He isn't hiding, Declan continued. He's showing off, Lila whispered. Why would anyone want to be caught doing this? Declan clicked another window and revealed a new set of directories, stamped with timestamps only minutes old. Caden recorded everything, Declan said. Every attack, every stolen file, every financial manipulation. He pointed to folders clearly labeled, as if for presentation. Collapse videos, client destruction logs, bank skimming tools, internal access recordings, personal data trophies. Hazel's breath hitched. He cataloged the destruction of my company. Zuri stepped forward, hand trembling against her son's chair. Why would someone do that? She whispered. Declan turned in his seat, eyes more serious than any 10-year-old should ever be. Because Caden isn't trying to escape, he said. He's selling himself. Everett stiffened. As selling himself? Declan nodded. He's advertising what he can do. He wanted your company to be the showcase. The example. The warning. Both sank into a chair. Oh my God. Hazel pressed a hand to her chest, fighting the urge to collapse. So this wasn't about revenge, she said. This was a performance. Declan tapped another window. A message appeared. One Caden had left on a public thread, time-stamped hours earlier. Corporate revenge / cyber cleansing services available. High-impact destruction. No footprint. No trace. 100% guaranteed. Message for consultation. Hazel felt sick. He had been using Whitmore Tech as his audition tape. Everett's voice was barely a whisper. And his next client could be anyone. Declan swallowed. No, he already has clients. He opened a folder containing incoming messages Caden had received. Requests, instructions, payment confirmations, all with one goal: destroy competing companies before major financial events. Hazel staggered back in her chair. This is bigger than us, Lila whispered. Declan's eyes darkened as he opened a live feed window. I know, he said, because he's not done. Suddenly, like a curtain lifting, every screen in the room blinked white. Then red, then black. A single message appeared. Whitmore Tech dies today. You shouldn't have fired me. You shouldn't have chased me. Hazel's heart stopped. Caden, she whispered. He knows what we're doing. Declan stared at the message, and something inside him clicked. This isn't because we discovered him, Declan said quietly. This attack was already scheduled. Everett froze. What? Declan zoomed into the logs. Look, the code that triggered the full destruction wasn't activated when we found him. It was timed. Hazel's knees went weak. He always intended to finish us today. Then, without warning, every monitor exploded into new activity. This wasn't deletion. This wasn't theft. This was assault. Dozens of new windows opened simultaneously. External networks connected. Outgoing IP addresses multiplied. Whitmore Tech's systems turned outward, not inward. Caden isn't wiping us anymore, Declan said. Everett went pale. What is he doing? Declan whispered. He's turned your servers into weapons. Hazel staggered forward. What does that mean? Declan didn't look away from the screens. He's using your systems to attack other companies. Banks, hospitals, clients, vendors, anyone connected to Whitmore Tech. Lila covered her mouth. He's framing us for every attack. Colton's voice cracked, and destroying every partnership we've ever had. Zuri put her hand on her son's shoulder. Baby, this is too dangerous. Declan straightened. No, he said. This is when it matters. He began typing again, faster than before. We can still trace him. We can still stop him. But the screens glitched violently. A new message appeared. Hello, Declan. I see you. Hazel froze. Zuri's breath hitched. Everett muttered a curse. Caden had identified the person interfering with him. A child. And he was not amused. Declan whispered. He's coming after me now. The lights flickered overhead as if the building itself felt the tension. Hazel stepped closer. What do you need? Declan swallowed hard. Time, he said. And maybe... He took a shaky breath. Someone should call the police again. Zuri squeezed his shoulder tightly. Declan, sweetheart, you don't have to fight this man. He finally turned toward his mother, and in his eyes Hazel saw a bravery far beyond his years. Mama, he whispered, if I stop now, he wins. And he'll keep doing this to other people. Hazel felt something break inside her. Awe, fear, gratitude. She couldn't tell which. Because the next phase was no longer about saving a company. It was about surviving a predator. And Declan was the only one who saw how deep the darkness went. But what Declan was about to discover would make everything they'd learned so far feel small. Because Caden Fowler wasn't working alone, and the real mastermind had already taken notice of the boy who was ruining their operation. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls had crept inward, tightening around every breath. The red glow of malicious code reflected off the conference table, dancing like embers from a burning building. It didn't look like data anymore. It looked like the beginning of a war. Declan sat at the center of the chaos, small hands hovering over a keyboard designed for adults with degrees and experience, not a child whose feet barely reached the floor. Caden's message still glared from every screen. Hello, Declan. I see you. Zuri stepped closer, her chest rising and falling with fear she tried desperately to hide. Baby, she whispered, voice trembling. You don't have to keep going. Declan didn't look away from the monitor. If I stop, he said softly, he'll destroy everything. Hazel swallowed hard. Declan, you're just a kid. This is dangerous. He is dangerous. Declan's voice didn't waver. So are the people he works for. Bull looked up sharply. What do you mean? Declan tapped another window and pulled up the attacker's routing pattern. A snowstorm of connection points blinking in and out. Caden's fast, he said, and he's good. But even good hackers slip when they get angry. Everett nodded slowly. Emotion leads to mistakes. Declan pointed to a small, irregular spike in Caden's command signal, like a heartbeat. He got mad when he saw me, Declan explained. He sped up. He got sloppy. Hazel leaned in. Sloppy how? He opened a direct route. Zuri's hand flew to her mouth. He exposed himself, Everett whispered. Declan nodded. Exactly. And if I trace that route back while he's still furious, I can find where he really is. At that moment, almost perfectly timed, Caden launched a fresh wave of attacks. The screens erupted in violent cascades of red. Root-level files flashed warnings. Critical systems glitched. Servers overheated. Fire alarms buzzed faintly in the distance. Whitmore Tech's entire infrastructure shuddered under the weight of a cyber assault designed to crush them. Caden's accelerating, Lila shouted. He's trying to overload our hardware. Declan's voice remained strangely calm. He's trying to scare me. Hazel blinked. Scare you? Yeah. Declan's small shoulders tightened. Bullies always get loud when they're losing. Everett stared at the boy in disbelief. Declan, he said quietly, I've seen seasoned investigators freeze during attacks like this. How are you still composed? Declan's answer was simple. Because I played harder games. Hazel exhaled shakily. This boy was wired differently. Declan's fingers moved faster now, opening windows no one else dared touch, slicing through encrypted layers as naturally as breathing. Caden's attacks tried to smother him, but Declan adapted with every strike. Every firewall breach was countered. Every new malware stream was intercepted. Every spike in activity was met with a redirect. Bo watched in awe. It's like chess at light speed. No, Lila corrected softly. Like two grandmasters fighting with flamethrowers. Another spike hit. A massive one. For screens went black. Then 6. Then 10. Zuri gasped. Declan. It's okay, Declan said. He wants me to panic. I'm not panicking. Hazel's voice was tight with urgency. What do you need? Declan closed his eyes for one steadying breath. Time, he murmured. Just give me time. And then he struck back. His fingers flew, executing a string of commands Hazel had never seen used in corporate systems. Lines of code launched toward the attacker's relay servers, not to block, not to defend, but to observe. Declan was following Caden's moves backward, tracing the attack's signal to its root. Everett stared. That's advanced digital forensics. How do you? Declan didn't look up. Puzzle games. The kind where every wrong move resets the map. Suddenly, a breakthrough. One of Caden's proxy routes flickered, then cracked open like a broken shell. There, Declan whispered. I found his command center. Hazel stepped closer. Where is he? Declan zoomed in. A server farm in Miami blinked on the map. That's where his attack tools are, Declan explained. But Caden isn't there. Zuri frowned. He isn't. Declan shook his head. No, that's where he's sending the commands from. But the commands themselves come from somewhere else. Bo's eyes widened. He layered his location. Smart. Yeah, Declan said. But he forgot something. Hazel leaned forward. What? Declan tapped the map. The timing. Everett blinked. The timing. Declan rewound the logs and played back the attack signals in sequence. There's always a delay of 43 milliseconds between his commands and the relay, Declan explained. But when he got mad, he zoomed in further. It dropped to 12. Lila's jaw dropped. That means... He moved closer, Bo finished. Declan nodded. And when I follow that... He dragged the path upward on the map. Left turn. Jump. Route shift. The final pin dropped. A downtown high-rise. An office suite. A room number. Hazel froze. No, she whispered. Zuri felt her pulse spike. Everett sucked in a sharp breath. Bo muttered, You've got to be kidding. Declan said the words none of them were ready for. Caden is operating from inside this city. Hazel's knees went weak. Her former cybersecurity chief hadn't just sabotaged her. He was close enough to watch it fall. Declan's voice lowered, grave and steady. He's here, and he's not just finishing your destruction. He clicked another directory on the feed. A new message flashed across the screen, sent only seconds earlier. The child is more dangerous than expected. Activate full destruction. No survivors in the system. Hazel's heart dropped. Who sent that? She whispered. Declan swallowed. Caden wasn't talking to us. He turned toward Hazel with eyes far older than 10. He was talking to someone else. The room went silent. Declan looked back at the screen. Caden isn't the mastermind, he said softly. He's working for someone bigger. Zuri put a hand over her mouth. Hazel felt her world tilt again. Everett whispered, Dear God. Declan finished the sentence for all of them. And they know exactly who I am. The building lights flickered violently. The fire alarms wailed upstairs. Caden's final attack wave slammed into Whitmore Tech Systems with the fury of a man carrying out orders from a monster. And Declan Rivera, 10 years old, was the only line of defense left. But what Declan would do next, the move no adult could have imagined, would flip the entire war upside down. The building alarms screamed overhead, a relentless shriek that echoed through the corridors as if the entire structure was begging them to run. But Declan Rivera didn't flinch. His eyes locked on the code, spiraling across the monitors like a digital tornado. Caden's final destruction wave was brutal. Systems overheated. Security protocols buckled. Servers fought for breath under the weight of malicious commands. Zuri clutched Declan's chair, her voice shaking. "Baby, please, we need to leave. This building isn't safe." Declan shook his head without looking at her. "If we leave now," he said quietly, "he erases everything." Hazel felt something inside her snap. "Declan, this isn't your responsibility. You shouldn't be fighting this man. You're just—" He spoke without turning around. "I'm the only one who can finish this." Silence fell. Heavy, uncomfortable, terrifyingly true. Then Declan straightened slightly in his seat. A subtle shift, but Hazel felt it. The shift from fear to strategy. "He thinks he's winning," Declan murmured. Everett leaned forward. "He's deleting your backup servers. He's corrupting the core database." "How is that winning?" Declan's fingers hovered over the keys. "Because he's too busy attacking us to protect himself." Hazel's eyes widened. "So he left something open?" Declan nodded. "His back door." He cracked his knuckles, not with childish bravado, but with the controlled ritual of someone stepping into battle. Zuri's breath caught. "Declan." He glanced up at her, eyes soft but determined. "Mama, I'm okay." Then he dove in. Windows opened in rapid succession. Network maps split and reformed. Command lines scrolled like rivers of symbols. Bo nearly fell out of his chair. "He's not blocking the attack." "No," Everett whispered. "He's redirecting it." Hazel's heart kicked. "Redirecting? What does that mean?" Declan answered without pausing. Caden built destructive tools, malware that destroys everything it touches. He typed another sequence. "They're designed to be unstoppable." "So?" Lila asked, hands shaking. "So," Declan said, "we're going to let them do what they were built to do." Everett's eyebrows shot up. "On Caden's servers?" Declan smiled faintly. "Exactly." He executed the command, and the effect was instant. On the monitors, Caden's attack tools began shifting, turning around, bending in on themselves, reconfiguring their path like predators scenting a new target. Within seconds, they were rushing back toward the attackers' relay servers. Hazel's breath caught. "You're weaponizing his own tools against him." Declan nodded. "His entire setup runs through those command servers. If I flip the attack pathways, he gets hit with everything he sent at us," Bo whispered, stunned. "Yup." A burst of new data filled the screens. Declan's command had taken hold. Caden's malware hit his relay server with devastating force. A cascade of red alerts erupted on their feed, but this time they weren't Whitmore text alerts. They were Caden's. Everett slapped a hand on the desk. "He's crashing. His system is collapsing." Declan zoomed in on the meltdown. Data scrambled. Directories twisted. Encryption keys shattered one by one. Caden's digital fortress, the one he'd used to destroy dozens of companies, was falling apart. Hazel felt a pulse of adrenaline flood through her. "He can't stop it." "No," Declan said. "He's fighting it. But he's losing." On the screen, Caden's counterattack surged. New malware, new encryption, new command attempts. But Declan intercepted everything, slicing through attack vectors with a speed Hazel didn't know was humanly possible. Lines of code clashed like sparks from colliding swords. Zuri held her breath each time Declan's fingers paused, even for a second. "Declan, sweetheart, are you sure?" He whispered. "I'm okay, Mama." But the truth showed in his posture, the tension in his neck, the tightness in his grip. This was costing him. Suddenly, a new window flashed open. Not a system alert, not an attack, not a tool. A message. Direct, personal, explosive. "Who are you?" Hazel's pulse spiked. Caden is trying to talk to him. Declan's lips twitched, half fear, half defiance. He's scared. The message flashed again, louder, angrier. "Show yourself. Coward." "Who are you?" Declan typed 2 words. Hazel watched his fingers move, slow, deliberate, fearless. "Hi, Caden." Another message. "What? Who is this?" Declan typed. "I'm Declan Rivera. I'm 10. I learned coding from YouTube. My mom cleans Miss Hazel's office." Silence. Complete, terrifying silence. Then, the screens erupted in rage. Threats. Curses. Attempts to crash Declan's console. Command storms. Digital fury. Zuri lunged forward, ready to block his eyes, but Declan had already closed the chat window. He didn't need to see the words. He needed to finish the job. Everett pointed at the logs. He exposed himself. The chat connection. It revealed everything. Declan nodded. He sent it without masking. He was too mad. Bo clicked through the metadata. Oh my God. Declan, you didn't just find his servers. Hazel leaned in. What did he find? Bo's voice dropped. He found Caden's physical location. Declan typed one last command. A precise address appeared. Building name. Floor. Room number. Hazel gasped. He's right here. In the city. Declan turned to her. Exhausted, pale, but victorious. You should call the FBI now. Hazel hadn't moved that fast in her life. She almost dropped her phone. Within seconds, federal cybercrime agents were on the line. Declan wasn't done. He opened the stolen directories, recovered the data, restored what he could, mapped the rest. Everett watched in awe. He's dismantling Caden's entire criminal network. Bo murmured, "This kid, he's ending a cyber empire." Minutes later, Hazel hung up. "They're raiding the location now," she said. "They want to speak to our consultant." Everyone turned to Declan. He slumped back in his chair, shoulders dropping for the first time in hours. The fight drained from his body. But he managed a small, tired smile. "I told you," he whispered. "We could stop him." Hazel knelt down to eye level. "You didn't just stop him, Declan," she said softly. "You exposed something bigger, something we didn't even understand." Everett looked at the recovered files, now scrolling on the screen. "This isn't just Caden," he said. "These operations, these payments, he was working for someone." Declan clicked the last folder. A message appeared, sent only 2 hours ago. "The child is a problem. Increase the timeline. Full destruction now." Hazel's voice cracked. They knew about Declan. Zuri's hand tightened around her son's shoulder. Everett swallowed. This was never about destroying one company. This, Bo whispered, was about destroying an entire market. Hazel closed her eyes. How many companies, how many families did they attack? Declan turned the screen. Dozens of names, dozens of victims, billions in manipulated markets. And then, the line that ended the room's breath. Next target, Whitmore Tech, IPO sabotage. Hazel felt her heart stop. IPOs, stock drops, time crashes. This wasn't revenge. This was orchestrated, weaponized economic warfare. And Declan Rivera, a 10-year-old boy, had just derailed their entire operation. But what came next would change everything. Not just for the company, not just for Hazel, but for Declan himself. Because the conspiracy wasn't finished. And the people behind Caden Fowler had just realized the one person who could stop them was a child. The raid happened faster than Hazel expected. Federal agents swarmed the downtown high-rise, surrounding the glass building like a tightening net. Within minutes, Caden Fowler, the man who almost erased Whitmore Tech and crippled dozens of companies, was pulled from a dimly lit server room, covered in wires, hard drives, and panic. But as agents marched him out, something unexpected happened. Caden didn't fight. He didn't shout. He didn't even look ashamed. He smiled. It wasn't triumph. It was something worse. A warning. And Declan Rivera, sitting in Whitmore Tech's flickering conference room, with Zuri's arms wrapped protectively around him, understood that smile before anyone else. Because Caden wasn't the mastermind. He was just a piece, a pawn, already sacrificed. The real enemy was still out there. The shattering discovery. Later that night, as FBI agents filled the room collecting evidence Declan had recovered, Special Agent Mila Barnes approached Hazel with a file in her hands. One so sensitive she hadn't shown it to the other executives. "Hazel," she said quietly, "your company wasn't the only target." Hazel's chest tightened. "I know." Declan found the list. Mila shook her head. "You don't understand. This goes deeper." She handed Hazel the file. Inside were financial records from a Cayman Islands shell company. Payments, routing details, directives, and one alarming note. Target children with exceptional digital pattern recognition. Recruit, control, eliminate threats. Hazel's stomach flipped. "They knew about Declan," Mila said, her voice low and grim. Not by accident. They've been monitoring prodigies for years, the ones they can use or fear. Zuri wrapped her arms around her son. No, she said, voice trembling. No, absolutely not. He's a child. Mila nodded softly. Yes, and that's why they consider him a threat. Declan looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. He wasn't a hacker. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't supposed to be fighting criminal empires. He was a boy who watched YouTube tutorials after school. And yet, he'd save an entire company. 6 months later, a very different room. The crowd stood as the committee chairwoman entered the congressional chamber. Photographers lined the walls. News crews from every major network waited. Millions watched live. At the witness table sat Hazel Mitchell, and beside her, swinging his feet because the chair was too tall, sat Declan Rivera wearing a neatly pressed shirt Zuri ironed that morning. Mr. Rivera, the chairwoman said with a warm smile, can you tell the American people how a 10-year-old managed to stop the biggest corporate cybercrime ring in U.S. history? Declan adjusted his microphone. YouTube, he said simply. The room laughed, but behind that laughter was awe. Declan continued. When you mess things up a lot, you learn how to fix them. Grown-ups try to make problems complicated, but sometimes the answers are simple. Hazel looked at him, pride softening her expression. 6 months ago, she saw a child in the corner of a collapsing company. Today, she sat beside the child who saved 3,000 jobs and exposed a conspiracy worth nearly $3 billion. Special Agent Barnes spoke next. This young man helped us solve 17 major cybercriminal investigations. His pattern recognition bypasses most forensic tools. We rely on him. Declan's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected that praise. Hazel leaned forward and addressed the committee. Declan didn't just save my company, she said. He saved dozens of companies, hundreds of thousands of jobs. He showed me that brilliance doesn't care about age, or titles, or social status. Then she placed a hand on Declan's shoulder. And he taught me that sometimes the greatest genius is standing in a place you never thought to look. A new beginning. The Whitmore Foundation launched scholarships for underprivileged children interested in technology. The FBI trained new units using techniques Declan taught them. And Whitmore Tech rebuilt itself stronger, with Declan's insights coded into new security frameworks. As they left the hearing, reporters flooded around them. Cameras flashed. Microphones shoved forward. But Declan didn't care about any of that. He was holding Zuri's hand. Can we get ice cream now? He asked. Hazel blinked, then burst out laughing, the tension of 6 months finally melting. You can have all the ice cream you want, Declan. Zuri smiled down at her son, brushing her fingers through his hair. You did something incredible today, she whispered. Declan shrugged. I just fix mistakes. That's all I ever do. Hazel knelt to face him. No, she said gently. You changed the world, and the world will never be able to ignore boys like you again. For the first time since the attack, Declan allowed himself to breathe. Really breathe, without pressure, without weight, without fear. He wasn't a weapon. He wasn't a target. He was a kid, a brilliant kid, and the world finally knew his name. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoyed today's story, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another pulse-pounding cinematic tale from Black Rise. Here's a quick question for you. Would you have trusted Declan if you were Hazel, or would you have dismissed him like everyone else? Sometimes, the brightest solutions come from the voices we overlook. And sometimes, the smallest hero changes the biggest world.